Okay, good morning, class.
Good morning, teachers.
I am teacher Calub,
I am teacher Hannah Blesil.
And I am teacher Blesil Mae A.
and today we are your teaching demonstrators. Okay, so let's proceed to our discussion. Did you ask yourself once, what makes a story a story? Or did the question, what makes a story interesting ever cross your mind? Okay, so today we will be discussing about what makes a story and what makes it interesting. So these questions will be answered as we go on with our topic, which is the elements of a story. To know more about it, let us first have a story to read, and later on we'll analyze it using the elements of the story to be discussed later on. So I will be distributing the reading materials. Please get one and pass, and let's read it all together. Don't worry, the story will be flashed on the screen. So, okay. Okay, everyone, please read.
A lion lay asleep in the forest.
His great head resting on his paws. A timid
little mouse came upon him unexpectedly,
and in her fright and haste to get away,
ran across the lion's nose.
Roused from his nap,
the lion laid his huge paw tenderly on the tiny creature to feel hers.
Okay, may I have the people here to please read the next one?
Spare me, begged the poor mouse. Please let me go, and someday I will surely repay you.
And this one, please read.
The lion was much amused to think that the mouse would ever help him, but he was generous and finally let the mouse go.
Now everyone read aloud.
Some days later, while stalking his prey in the forest, the lion was caught in the claws of a hunter's net. Unable to free himself, he filled the forest with his angry roaring.
The mouse knew the voice and quickly found the lion struggling in the net.
Running to one of the great ropes
that bound him, she gnawed it until it parted, and soon the lion was free.
Okay, may I have this column again to read the next slide?
You laughed when I said I would repay you, said the mouse. Now you see that even the mouse can help a lion.
And the next group.
Kindness is never wasted.
Okay, so this one is the moral of the story. So, who among you can identify, if you really understood the story, who among you can identify the characters of what you just read? Anyone? Yes, Miss Haviland?
The characters in the story that we just read is the lion and the horse.
Very good. How about, who can answer the question, where did the story take place? Yes, Mr. Angel?
The story took place in a forest.
And, okay. And what do you think is the lesson of the story? The one that you just read a while ago. Yes, Miss Midam?
The lesson of the story is that kindness is never wasted.
Okay, answering those questions, you are one step closer to understanding the elements of the story. But to delve deeper into it, let us first see what are the components of what are the elements rather of the story. First, we have, please read.
Characters, setting, plot, conflict, tone and theme, point of view.
Okay, so we'll go over them one by one. May I call on Teacher Hannah to discuss with you the characters and...
Hello, good morning everyone. Once again, I am teacher Hannah, and today I will be discussing about the characters and the setting of the story. So earlier, you have already identified what the character and the setting is in the story. So based on what you have identified, can someone please tell me their rough idea of what the definition of character is? Anyone? Helen?
Character definition characters play a crucial role in a story, of course. These are the people, animals, or even entities that drive the plot and interact with each other.
Yes, perfect indeed. So we have here another definition. Everyone please read.
Sorry.
Everyone please read the first bullet. 1, 2, 3, go.
A character is a person, animal, being, creature, or thing in a story.
Next one.
Writers use characters to perform the actions and speak dialogue, moving the story along a plot line.
So your classmate Havenlay is correct earlier. So it is the most crucial element of a story because it puts or it brings the story to life. So we have two types of characters. We have two major classifications, the major and the minor characters. But today we will only be talking about the major characters. So we have the protagonist and the antagonist. So a protagonist is the main character of a story. It has the biggest part of the plot. Basically, the plot revolves around the main character or the protagonist. And in opposition to the protagonist, we have the antagonist. To put it simply, the antagonist has contradicting or the opposite characteristics of a protagonist. So in some stories, the protagonist is most stories, the protagonist, they refer to them as the good characters, and the antagonist is the bad character. However, there are stories that the protagonist is a villain, and the antagonist is the good person, the good character. Okay. Earlier, we have identified the characters of the story that we just read, the lion and the mouse. And now I want you to identify which of those two characters is the protagonist and the antagonist. So first, who is the protagonist in the story of the lion and the mouse? Protagonist. Protagonist.
Can I have a
Definitely
guess?
not.
I think the protagonist of the story is the mouse.
Yes, that is correct. And obviously, the antagonist of the story is the lion. But this interpretation is kind of subjective, right? So it depends on how you're gonna see or how you understood the story. But for children, of course, the first thing that we will associate the term protagonist is the mouse, because the nature of a mouse is it's small, it's timid, and it is not, that's the exact word, it is harmless. Thank you, Miss Sushan. Now that we have understood what the characters are, let's have the next element, which is setting. Everyone please read.
It is the time, place, and atmosphere where the story unfolds.
So it is not just where it happened, but also what time or the atmosphere. What is the vibe in the place where the story took place? So earlier, Mr. Jasmine said that the story took place in a forest. It did not explicitly mention a time or an atmosphere in the story, and that is because that is not always the case. There are times that readers have to have an in-depth understanding of the whole story. However, usually in stories, the setting and the characters are mentioned in the exposition of the story, and that we will learn about in the next part of our lesson. So may I call on Mr. Ivan, Sir Ivan, to discuss about the plot.
Okay. So, the concept of plot is no longer a stranger for us since we've encountered this back in the day. So the plot has, okay, let's define it first. Everyone, can you read?
Plot is a sequence of interconnected events within the story.
Okay. So, plot is basically all of those events starting from the introduction to the conclusion. So, plot has five components, namely exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. Now let's try to go over them one by one, and let's start with the exposition. So in exposition, basically it introduces the setting, the characters, as well as adds additional information about the story itself. So in the given story a while ago, which is The Lion and the Mouse, it says the story introduced a great lion resting peacefully in the forest, and then suddenly a mouse wakes him up. Okay, so why do you think that is the exposition of the story? Anyone? Yes, Miss Vida. Why do you think that in the story of The Lion and the Mouse, where the lion is introduced as he is resting peacefully in the forest, and a mouse comes in, accidentally waking him up?
I think that it serves as the exposition of the story because it introduces us to the background of or the summary of the story and as well as the characters that are part of that plot.
Very good. Because on that part, the story introduces the characters, which are the lion and the mouse, as well as gives us the setting, which is the forest. Okay, let's proceed to the rising action. So for the rising actions, these are the events that help build up the tension as well as the interest in the reader's mind. So in the story of the lion and the mouse, the rising action is when the lion angrily captures the mouse and considers eating it. However, the mouse pleads for its life. And then the lion is amused but also merciful, so he decided to let go of the mouse because the mouse also promised to return the favor someday. Now, what makes it qualified to the rising action? Anyone from the class? Yes, Miss Parawan.
I think that it makes the rising action because a rising action follows the exposition and it builds the tension and it builds the tension transitioning into the climax.
Yes, that is correct. While also, it is also considered as the rising action because the moment the lion captures the mouse and the moment the mouse pleads for its life, you can notice that while you read into those lines, you can see your emotions building up, the interest as well as the tension. Okay, now let's move on to the climax. So climax is basically the turning point or the most intense moment of the story. Again, let's use what you have read a while ago, The Lion and the Mouse, as an example. So in that story, the climax is where the lion is trapped in a hunter's net and then he lets out a mighty roar calling out for help. Now, who among you can tell me why that part is considered as the climax of the story? Yes, Ms. Freedom, why is it so?
I think that part is the climax of the story because it is the tension that builds itself because the lion is trapped in a net and it talks about a life and death situation wherein the hunter might be able to catch the lion and kill it or sell its skin.
Okay, that is correct. So basically, it becomes our climax because imagine a powerful and great lion being held captive by a hunter. Given the definition about him, he should get over it with only himself, but he suddenly calls out for help. Now, let's proceed to the falling action. So basically, in the falling action, these are the events that lead to the resolution of the conflict. So, in the given story a while ago, the resolution is when the mouse comes into the scene, the mouse rushes into the scene, and then she sees the lion being held captive in the hunter's net, and he gnaws through the rope until the lion is freed. So why do you think that scene is considered as the falling action of the story? Yes, Mr. Angel?
It is considered a following action because it follows the climax and begins to clarify the narrative, and of course, it releases the tension that has been set by the climax.
So that is a very technical definition, and let us apply to the example a while ago. That is because the mouse rushes into the scene and helps the lion to be, to get away from, to be free from the hunter's net. Now let's have the resolution. So basically here, the resolution is the conclusion of the story. It is where the loose ends are tied up and where the story ends. And to give an example again, the story of the lion and the mouse, the resolution is when the lion is humbled and at the same time grateful, and he realizes that even the smallest creature can give or can make a big difference. Now, what makes it a resolution? What makes that part of the story a resolution? When the lion is now grateful and now he arrives at a certain realization that even a mouse, that small creature, can give a big help. Yes, Miss Vida, I can hear your thoughts from here.
So it is the resolution, it shows the resolution because, as Mr. Destiny has mentioned, it ties up, as you've mentioned, it ties up the loose ends, and also we can see that the solution to the problem here is presented, wherein the conflicts are also addressed, such as the pride of the lion to be saved or helped by a small mouse.
Okay, good job. That is correct. Now give yourselves a warm round of applause for being able to give the definition. So basically, what Ms. Vidam has said is correct. And story, the part where the lion becomes thankful and grateful towards the effort or the course of action taken by the mouse, it is where the story ends and where the lion gains character development and now realizes that kindness is such a big thing, regardless of your size. Now, okay, let's move on to the conflict. Okay, now we have the conflict. So conflict is basically the problem of the story. It is what makes the story interesting. So without the conflict, the story is bland and it does not have any flavor at all. Okay, so there are different, before we proceed to the different types of conflicts, let us first define what a conflict is. Now everybody, kindly read.
All protagonists have something to overcome. This conflict is a key component that moves the plot forward and keeps us interested in the story.
So conflict is basically the hook element of the story. Without it, the story won't have a life for the readers. Okay, so let's have the different types of conflict. First, we have character versus character. So this is pretty much self-explanatory because a character opposing another character is an example of a type of conflict. Now, who among you knows a story where a character is opposed by another character? Yes, Miss Vida.
The example I'm going to share is from a movie.
Okay, yeah, you can use it as an example.
It is the characters of Draco Malfoy and Harry Potter in the movie Harry Potter.
Okay, so you can notice the pattern where the character is in opposition to another character. That is basically what the character versus character conflict is all about. Next, we have character versus self. So in this part, character versus self is where a character faces internal confrontations. When we say internal confrontations, the problem can arise from themselves or from their own mind. So we can have Miss Heavenly as an example. Let's use her in a short story where she troubles with her identity. She doesn't know who she is. She doesn't even know who she is 2 days from now. So Miss Heavenly is now having an internal confrontation by means of asking, who am I? Okay? From the mere question, who am I, we can expound or it brings out more of an internal problem, which is focused on her identity. Next, we have character versus society. So, character versus society is when the main character or any other character is opposed by or confronted by the society itself. So, let's take for example Kishan. She is the main character of her own story, but then as a whole group of people drive against her. So that group of people can reflect the whole society, which makes it now the character versus the society conflict. Now we have character versus nature. So the nature here is the natural calamities itself. Take for example, the tsunamis, the storms, the earthquakes that hinder the development or the progress of the main character throughout the story. Lastly, we have character versus supernatural. So supernatural can be a god, can be a zombie, can be a fairy, can be anything that is beyond normal state. So can you give me an example for character versus supernatural? Yes, Mr. Angel.
I think one example is when a character or a specific character, for example, a horror movie where the main character fights an entity which is a ghost.
Yes, ghost is a supernatural entity. Okay, that is correct. Thank you, Mr. Angel. Now that we're done with the types of conflict, and I'm pretty sure that you have understood it well. Did you understand what the conflict is? Okay, so let's proceed to the tone and theme to be discussed by Ma'am Morales.
So now we will discuss about the tone and theme. Everybody please read what is tone.
Tone is the overall mood or attitude conveyed by the narrator's word choice in a story.
Thank you. So by using the right tone, the message we can convey the moments of tension, relief, or anticipation to the readers and make the readers more interested in our story. So from our story while ago, we have the lion and the mouse. So what do you think is the tone in the story? Anyone who has a guess? So the tone in this story has three. It is light or gentle, friendly or respectful, and hopeful or uplifting. First is light because the story is easy to understand, especially by the children. Next, it is friendly or respectful because the characters in the story shows kindness, and the author wants to show us that even small things can have a great impact. It also has a tone of hopeful or uplifting because the author wants to understand us to understand that even small things can be powerful. Now everybody read what is theme.
Theme is the underlying message or concept that the author is trying to convey to the reader.
So in short, theme is the main message or the moral of the story. So what is the lesson in the story that we read a while ago?
Kindness is never wasted.
Indeed, kindness is never wasted. That even smallest acts of kindness, it can have a great impact. That has been shown to us by the mouse earlier when he or she helped the lion. So next is the point of view. So point of view refers to the narrator or the perspective of the story. It answers the question, who is telling the story? So under the point of view, we have three types. And these are, first is the first person point of view. So the first person point of view stories have been told from the perspective of one character who describes the action using I or me. For instance, they might say, I was 13 years old when the war began. So I was 13 years old. So that is first person point of view. The second one is second person point of view. It is used less commonly in literature. it uses the pronoun you and addresses the readers directly. A second person point of view story might say, you were 13 years old when the war began. So if we were gonna compare it from the first person point of view, I use I, because that is first person. So here we use the pronoun you and we address the reader directly by saying, you were 13 years old when the war began. And the third one, or the last one, is third person point of view. So the third person point of view has a narrator describing the actions of characters within the story, saying, he was 13 years old when the war began. So under the third person point of view, we have two. It is the omniscient and the limited. So when we say limited, the narrator only knows the thoughts and ideas of a single character in the story. So the opposite of limited is omniscient, which means that the narrator knows all the thoughts of the characters in the story. So to see if you really understood what we discussed today, let's have an activity entitled Arrange the Entries. So everyone, please read the mechanics of our game.
The teachers will provide pieces of papers that contain a part of the story. The students will arrange it through a story map. After arranging the storyline, the students will be tasked to identify the theme or moral lesson of the story.
One representative will present the output in front. This activity is good for 5 minutes.
So we have here the rubrics. So since it tells there that there is only one representative, I will be grouping you into 3. Please count up.
2.
1, 2. So group 1 will stay here, group 2 will stay here, and group 3 will stay at the back. Group 1, group 2, and group 3. So he is your timer starts now. So the time is up. Everyone, please place your activity on the board. So may I call on the representative of Group 1 to present their work.
So good afternoon, everyone. I am the representative of Group 1. And our exposition, in a Boston village, marketplace actors merchant decided to play a trick by giving a rare and valuable turquoise stone to play Blesil Mae, setting the stage for a lesson on recognizing teamwork. For the writing action, the monkey eagerly takes the turquoise, but not understanding its value. In climax, the monkey, thinking the pebble more attractive, proudly clutches it while the valuable turquoise lies forgotten in the dark. The following action, the merchant watches and laughs, realizing that the monkey was traded something precious for something worthless out of pure ignorance. And the resolution, the story ends with a clear moral. Those who cannot recognize true value often give up something precious for manipulation. And the theme, the difference between appearance and the true value and how ignorance can lead to poor decisions. Now for the lesson, those who do not understand the true value of something may easily throw it away for something that only looks appealing.
So it seems that all of you have the same answer. Answered correctly. Everyone, please stand up and let's do the good job clap. 1, 2, 3, go. G-O-O-D-J-O-B, good job. Good job. G-O-O-D-J-O-B, good job. Good job. activity. Let's call on Sir Ivan.
Okay, it shows that all of you really understood our discussion. So, to stir it all up, let's have another activity which is entitled Closing a Book. So, this activity is simple. Please read the mechanics.
The teacher will provide a piece of paper that contains an incomplete story. The students are tasked to write their own version of an ending of the story. The students will be given 5 minutes to write their endings. 5 random students will share their outputs with the class.
Now it's time to teach your creative minds. All that you have to do is to continue the story provided. It already has an exposition to the following action, and all you have to do is to write your own ending. So you can be creative however you want, and later on, after the completion of this activity, I will select randomly who will share their outputs with the class. Okay, so before I forget, let us have the rubrics first. So, for the content, 20 points. Your ending shows a clear resolution of the story, and the piece has no grammatical errors. And 18 points will be given if the ending shows a clear resolution of the story, and the piece has a minor grammatical errors. Now, 16 points if the ending does not solve the conflict of the story and the piece has grammatical errors. Okay? So, let the time start now. Okay, is everyone done with their outputs?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Okay, if that's the case, then let's cut the time and let's begin the output presentation. So, who among you can share their outputs to the class? Yes, Miss Vidam, please. Be in front.
So I've written a short ending. Is that I don't care? Jamie said, barely above a whisper. I just don't know who I am. And then, Jamie stood up, walked off, leaving Luca confused and heartbroken. The next day, the two talked about it and agreed that both of them should live their own lives separately while remaining friends and civil with one another.
Wow, let's give her a round of applause. That is a very heartbreaking ending for a story. I was expecting someone to write a full romance about it, but now, to wrap things all up, may I call on Teacher Serquiña?
Then, hello once again. Before we have our assessment, let's first summarize everything that we have learned. So again, we have learned about the elements of the story, which are the characters, the setting, the plot, the conflict, tone and theme, and the last one is, can someone remember? The point of view. Okay, I was just testing if you really understood our lesson. So again, the characters of the story is the most crucial element. The setting is where and when the story happened. The plot is the sequence of events. The conflict is what is the heart of the story. The next one is the tone and theme is how the author conveyed the message and the overall vibe of the story. And lastly, the point of view is how the narrator or the story wrote the story. Okay, so now let's test your understanding by answering this 10-item quiz within 5 minutes. So please get one in class. Okay. Okay, so now, does everyone have their own paper?
Yes,
Your
ma'am.
timer starts now. Okay, looks like everyone is ready. Let's check your papers. Okay. please exchange papers with your seatmates. Okay, so I will just gonna dictate the answers for number 1, letter C, number 2, letter C, number 3, letter B, 4 and 5 C, 6 and 7 B, 8 and 9 C, and number 10 B. So who got a perfect score? Yan, okay, very good. Now, since you have the perfect score, please complete the sentence.
Okay, so today I have learned that the elements of the story, such as the character, setting, plot, conflict, the tone and theme, and of course the point of view, are essential in understanding how a story is structured, and how it conveys meaning. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Ms. Heavenly. And for our assignment, may I call on Ms. Blessed?
So for our assignment, everybody please read the direction.
Now for your assignment, write a narrative essay, 6 to 8 sentences, about your favorite place and how you from your favorite place. Use combinations of prepositions of time, place, and movement. Pass it to me next meeting.
So here is the rubric for your assignment in class. Next meeting. So class, goodbye and thank you for your listening. See you next week.